the biggest virtue you can have is patience and just trusting in the process, because there's general principles about running and training that we know to be true, and your gut usually knows what you're supposed to do for training and recovery and all that. Just because you're not getting the results that you want to have right away doesn't mean you should panic and switch it up. If your training is going well and if you're feeling like you're getting better in practice, then the results will come eventually.
That was the man of the hour, Gary Martin, back today on the Running Effect podcast. Gary, we're talking to him at the beginning of October, just roughly a month out from his final NCAA cross-country championships. Gary is a stud on the track. He's made not just NCAA finals, where he shaked it up with some of the best and become an NCAA champion himself, but he's also made U.S. championships. He's made the U.S. Olympic trials last year. He made the U.S. championships this year, which was the qualification for the 2025 World Championships in Tokyo, Japan that just happened. And now Gary is ready to leave his heart and his soul on the grass next month in Missouri. As he talks about in today's conversation, he wants to win the chip. He wants to win the whole thing. Despite being a track guy, he's challenging the narrative that you can get it done both on the track and on the grass. And so we dive into a lot of the mindsets, the training, the behaviors of what it takes to be one of the best athletes, not just in track, but also in cross country, and to do both excellently at the same time. If you enjoy this one, share it with a friend. The easiest way in which we can grow is word of mouth marketing. So the more people you spread the podcast with, the more you help me out. I greatly appreciate that. Give us a 5-star review. It takes like 5 seconds to do so, if that. And make sure you are following or subscribe to the podcast wherever you listen, so you never miss another episode like this one. With all those notes aside, enjoy this conversation with the one and only Mr. Gary Martin. Ladies and gentlemen, he's not back. He's better. Gary Martin back on the podcast today. Gary, how you doing, man?
I'm doing good. It's good to be back on.
October cross-country season. You're a PA guy, and PA was big in cross. I feel like the Northeast, Midwest loves fall weather, loves cross-country season. How do you feel?
I'm doing pretty good. I'm excited for cross-country season, and I know I just mentioned this to you, but the weather's finally starting to break in Virginia, so I love the 30, 40 degree mornings instead of the 60 degree mornings. So I've been enjoying that. Training's been going well. So life is good.
Cross country, first season that a new collegiate athlete will experience. Your senior year of high school, you lit the track on fire. And then you came to Virginia as a freshman. And before you could get to your bread and butter, which is the track, you had to attack the grass first. What would you say is like the biggest difference between the current Gary Martin I'm speaking to versus that freshman year Gary Martin who is entering NCAA cross for the first time?
Yeah, I think the freshman year Gary Martin was, I was ambitious. I was really ambitious, and I was ready to run the 8K, but I don't think my training quite stacked up to where I needed to be. And I think I was still a 800-mile runner, trying to fake it a little bit and hang on for dear life in the 8K. And or 3 years, not 4 years, 3 years later now, I'm just 3 years older. I'm a lot stronger, and I think now I'm a 5K mile runner who's more than capable of running the 8K and the 10K. And I think my strength is an asset instead of something that I'm trying to fake a little bit in cross country now.
Can you speak to the power of consistency there, of like the 3 years of consistent running? Because I think a lot of people think that, if they bump up their mileage for 2 months, they'll experience all these new gains, and maybe you get some short-term benefits. But for most people, strength comes through literally years of consistency. Unfortunately, for most freshmen, they're so impatient that doesn't really sit with them. They're like, 3 years? I don't want to wait around 3 years to be really good. But what's your view on that?
I mean, my view is, when I look at my mileage, I'm only up like 10 miles, 10, maybe 15 my senior year from where I was at my freshman year. And, that's the thing. It's not like I'm running a ton of crazy mileage, or I'm running way more than I was when I was a freshman, but it's just really those consistent miles and staying healthy that helps you build that strength. I've been lucky, knock on wood. I've never really had any injuries in college. And a big part of that has just been like the gradual progression and really trying to focus on getting consistent mileage instead of, running a million miles at once or running every workout really hard or something like that. And, just kind of having the mindset between me and my coaches that, being healthy is kind of the best asset as a runner. And if you can just stay consistent, you're going to get a lot better.
What would you say? I love asking people like yourself, who a lot of people look up to, like digestible tips and tricks. So for someone out there, what are like Gary Martin's keys to staying healthy and to recovering well?
Tip number one, I think, is listening to the body. And, I think between workouts and easy days, a lot of the running I do is kind of just based around how I feel. And, I know myself well enough where if I'm feeling really bad in a workout, I'm able to slow down the paces or cut it a little short. Or if I'm feeling good, I'm able to run a little faster. And same with easy days, when I'm feeling really tired, I'm not just running 10 miles because I had 10 miles written down and maybe cutting it a mile or two short or slowing it down. And, I think the biggest thing is just listening to my body on those days. If I have a day where I don't feel good and I take it a little easier, then I'm able to, feel a little better later in the week and make up for it then. And I think that's just the biggest thing really is being flexible and willing to adjust.
Easy runs. It's a hot topic amongst high school and college teams because you always have one or two guys who are going way too fast, way faster than they should. What's your perspective on the easy day? How do you approach easy runs? And it sounds like you're a very much like go by feel sort of guy. How has that benefited you versus being like, okay, 6:30 today, regardless of how I feel?
Yeah, like I said, I'm really big on going by feel, and I feel like I'm pretty like I like to use heart rate a lot. So, you know, I'm not usually like writing my training, or my coaches aren't writing my training around like, hey, keep your heart rate in this zone. But I think it's a really good metric where, you know, if I feel a little tired on a day or if I'm a little less recovered than normal, the heart rate will sometimes reflect that even before I even realize. So, you know, if I have an easy run and I feel good, my heart rate's low, then sure, like I'll go ahead and I'll run faster and I won't be afraid to pick up the pace a little bit. But same thing is, if I have a workout the next day or, heart rate's feeling high, I'm just a little tired, then I'm going to just like back off and take it easy. And I think that's the biggest thing is, if you can, my mindset is if I can get more out of my easy runs by running a little faster because I feel good, then I will. But the easy run is still always secondary to the workout days and the long run days. So number one priority is just using the easy days to get ready for those. And then number two is if I feel good, I'll run a little faster, but that's not really the main focus.
How do you, because I'm curious your perspective on this. Sometimes, like back in the day when I was running a lot more than I am now, there would be days where I was very aerobically fit. So my heart rate was lower, but my legs were trashed and super tired. And so even if like my heart rate was in a good spot going a certain pace, I probably should have slowed up because my legs were so tired and I was like physically trashing them. How do you balance that where your heart rate might be low, but your legs, might be super tired?
Definitely slow it down usually. Like today, even nice weather, my heart rate was low, but I was just like, man, legs are not feeling it today. So it's going to be a 7 minute pace day. And, you know, I feel like it's a balance of those two things where, like I said, I go off a feel first. So I just listen to my body, and then heart rate's kind of just a good metric to have in confirmation or just, kind of for data for how my body's really feeling.
I think a lot of people, I'm not sure if you're on Strava, but follow someone like you or Connor Mance or other people on Strava, and they automatically assume that they can do that sort of thing without realizing that you've run 3:48 in the mile and are one of the top runners in the US. What would you say to a kid out there? Because I honestly think it's one of the most prevalent issues in the sport is specifically high schoolers, and I do even think collegians having an ego on their easy days and thinking that every day needs to be at least like somewhat hard.
Yeah, I think it's hard because I think the best athletes obviously they have that drive and they have you have that competitiveness of you want to compare yourself to what the best people are doing, and you want to work harder and you want to be better because you think that's what's going to make you better. And to some extent it's true where you know you have to be willing to put yourself out there and work really hard, and that's a good trait to have, but you also have to be willing to realize be realistic with yourself and know where you're at and know that those gains aren't going to come all at once, and pick a thing to work on at once. And a lot of times that'll be maybe like getting better through workouts, and you don't want to be you don't have to be pushing yourself every single day because then you're just going to be running yourself into the ground. And I think you kind of need to pick and choose your battles, and keep that drive, keep that mindset. It's a good thing to have, but kind of just work at your own pace and compare yourself to your own workouts and your own progression.
From your experience or perspective, what are other pitfalls that athletes fall into that holds them back from experiencing their full potential?
Yeah, I think sleep is a big one too. I mean, that's as an athlete, I feel like that's the thing I swear by the most. Like, I think the best form of recovery is just getting a good night's sleep and sleeping as much as possible. And same thing. I think fueling even more so than obviously eating healthy is very important, but I think not fueling properly, not fueling enough is a really big pitfall where either you're not fueling before a run and then you don't really have the energy to do a good workout, or you're doing a hard workout and then you're not eating enough or not eating quick enough after. And I think those are kind of my two biggest things where I try to make sure I'm getting protein in like right after a workout. And no matter how early I'm running, I always eat breakfast and make sure I'm getting some kind of real food in so that I have enough fuel for the day.
Let's talk about cross specifically. This is your final. Is this the final year? What eligibility do you have, and where's your mind at before I ask the question?
I've used all my eligibility, so this will be the final year.
Really? Okay.
Yeah,
Final year across all three, or you just have cross?
all three. Well, yeah, I'm a fourth year, so I have one season of eligibility left and everything.
Okay, got it. So final year of cross country. You placed 13th last year. You got named a bunch of things, 2024 ACC Cross Country Performer of the Year, Big Scholar Athlete with the Glasses, 2024 ACC Cross Country Scholar Athlete of the Year. You're also on the All Academic Cross Country team. All sorts of things. Every year you've had a logical progression in this sport. I think we've talked about kind of Ethan Strand and how I think he drew a lot of confidence last year from his cross performance. I think you did too, as a guy who's maybe not like viewed as like a 5K, 10K guy. For you, what's the goal this year? What would you consider to be success? And how excited are you to be in this final year of cross country?
I think the biggest goal is, we have a really good team this year. I think we're ranked fourth in the country right now. And we have a bunch of guys who, got guys who have been here for 4 years of me who I've seen progress, and also like a few guys who came in as really high level grad transfers. So I think the biggest goal will just be trying to go out and, win ACCs as a team, podium at nationals, and really just, go out on a really high note for the team. And then on the other level, I think obviously, I was 13th last year. I'm one of the top returners, and, I want to make a run at winning NCAAs. And, I think it's like you said, I've been seen as a miler. I've been more of a track guy, but last year was a huge step, and I think I'm stronger than ever. I think I'm still getting better. And, last year I really peaked at the right time, and I had a big ACCs, big NCAAs, and that'll be the goal again this year. Just go out and try to repeat as ACC champion, and then go in NCAAs, compete for my team, try to win, try to podium as a team, but then at the same time, just put myself towards the front and see if I can make some noise the last few K.
So many questions to ask you off of that. I guess first one here, how much did your performance from last year give you the confidence going into this year that you could potentially go for the win? And I guess maybe a more specific question, last year with the Olympic trials, your season went longer, and that was like a unique situation to figure out with your coaches. How do we peak for the NCAA cross country meet with kind of a later start than most people? Similar situation this year, except you get a look back at the blueprint from last year that worked. How much have you taken that into account where it's like, okay, I'm not doing anything new. My season ended longer than most people, but I placed 13th in the country off of it, and I know what to do to be in the best shape of my life that Saturday in November.
Yeah, it's tough because even this year, I think it's like USA's this year was a month later than trials the year before. So definitely still on a little bit of a different schedule than the year prior. But I mean, with that said, I think we always knew that was going to be what was going to happen. So I think I had a really well written out plan with my coaches, and just, USA's was a big goal last year. That was a really big event. And, I was really happy with my performance there. And I still took time to regroup and maybe, pushed back the cross country training a little bit, but just knew that obviously I was so fit at the end of track. And then if I just had a couple months to, build the mileage back up and just be ready by the end of October, then that was kind of the big goal. And, don't worry as much about the early season stuff for cross country and just be ready to go when it matters.
I don't know. Have you opened up yet? If not, what's the racing schedule for Gary look like?
I did. I ran at the Gans Creek Classic, and I was ninth overall, which was like, first race back, I was kind of like, I was pretty happy with it. I was 16th at pre-nats last year, so I felt like I was already kind of ahead of where I was last year, and just following a similar progression, and with my training kind of just ramping up, I was pretty happy with it, and I feel like I'm going to be in a lot better shape in like a month and a half from then.
You're a smart guy, so it seems like you have pretty good perspective, and you can put a result in the context of everything else, but you're also wildly competitive. 8 guys beat you. Did that kill you at all? Or did you have the perspective, which it sounds like you did, to be like, okay, I'm totally fine with this. I'm happy with this. I'll be ready when the day counts.
A little bit of both. I mean, it's tough because, I think I can run better than the 8 guys who beat me, and I think I can beat them on any given day. But, at the same time, I think the perspective allows me to be like, there's no need to panic. Like, I'm right where I need to be. And, I think if I was, panicking, it would be, you go back to the drawing board and you try to change everything up and you train too hard. But like just looking at my progression from last year and, how much fitter I got from, pre-nats at the end of September to NCAAs, I think I'm even farther behind in training than I was last year. So I think there's a lot more to be gained before NCAAs, and I'm not really worried. I think once I get to those big races, I'm gonna be ready to go, and I'm gonna be able to beat anyone.
Which feels like more of a game to you, track or cross country?
More of a game.
Yeah, like in terms of, I don't know, cross country is like there's a lot of technical elements to it that makes it feel gamey in my mind, but also track feels very gamey in my mind with like you have like the prelims and the semifinal and the 15 specifically your event is like very tactical, but I also feel like cross is tactical.
Yeah, I think I don't know. That's a good question. I think there's aspects of both that, I mean, I could say either one, but I think cross country for me, and I think like the team aspect is a big part of that, where there's team strategy of where you're positioning your pack, and whether you're running in a pack or whether you're putting a couple guys at the front and some guys farther back. So I think that's a big aspect. I think it's also, with it being such a long race, there's a lot of strategy that goes into when you're going to make a move, and whether you're going to be patient early or aggressive, and all that kind of plays into it. And I think it's kind of, there's a lot of strategy there.
How much we've talked about you individually, but you did bring up your team. How much individually are you motivated by how good your team is? By that, I mean, if you guys were scratching to make nationals or place 20th for a historic program like Virginia, where success is expected, like you might be like, like it's all about me. And rightfully so. But in this situation, in this year, it does really matter where you score, right? The difference between 1 and 13 could be the difference between the top 3 spots. We've seen that happen in past years with, some of the NAU, like OSU drama. How much are you motivated, individually, but by the team, if that makes sense?
A ton. I mean, I think that's what's kind of unique about cross country is, in track, there is that aspect in track, but in cross country, it very directly correlates to, if I beat this guy who's right in front of me, this could be the difference between our team getting, second or third. So I think just for me, I'm definitely going to be running with that in mind. And, I see how hard my teammates are working on a daily basis, and I get to train with them every single day. So I'm just going to be thinking about that I know my teammates are out there on the course at the same time as me, and they're thinking the exact same thing and fighting for every spot. So it's a lot of motivation.
When was the first time you realized you loved cross country? Like middle school, high school? Was there a specific race? Was there a workout where you're like, okay, I love this sport?
High school was the first time I really ran cross country, and I think I realized I loved it, like not in any race or anything, but just like being with my teammates. And we had like a team trip where we went to like a cabin, and we stayed in the cabin for a few days and just trained and kind of just hung out. And we were all a bunch of high schoolers, and I don't think any of us really took running that seriously at the time, but it was just kind of like that was the closest like team environment and kind of, yeah, team aspect I ever really had in a sport. And I felt like that kind of made me fall in love with running in general and cross country, and just kind of the idea of going out there and competing for my teammates.
Talked about the team's ambitions. How exciting is it? You've been on this, I'm going to butcher Virginia history here, so if you're a coach or someone, don't be offended here, but I feel like Vin came in, kind of cleaned house, brought on guys like you, and I think over the years you have been a massive part of, as well as seen the continued success and trajectory of the program get a little bit better each year, a little bit better, a little bit better. How cool is it to be in your final season and to be in a position to podium for the first time? And I'm kind of new to the sport, but I don't remember Virginia being up there in a while.
Yeah, I mean it's kind of huge for us, and I think our team's best finish at NCAA's was fifth, like, but that was in the '80s, and since then I don't think we've been better than, I want to say, like 14th or 15th. So you know the opportunity is here for us to do something really big, and like you said, I think what's really cool is, I mean, Vin's been here for I think 6 years now, and you know we've had a bunch of really good guys like Connor Murphy, Derek Johnson, Yassine Sato, Wes Porter, guys before me who were all Americans, who in track and would always run well in cross, but really really shined in track, and we've made our mark on the national stage. But now it feels like we have a group of really 10 guys who can just go out and you know place themselves in all American position and compete. And obviously, I'm not saying all of us are going to be all Americans, but we just have so much depth and so much talent on this team now. And I think we're ready to really put together like a full team performance and make our mark as a team at nationals, which is super exciting.
I'm American, so naturally I'm biased American. Love America. We'll cheer for Americans all the time. My question for you: we saw, Connor Mance come out of nowhere, and everyone was stoked that we had an American winning cross, and then Charles Hicks, who is now American, he was British at the time, but we'll claim him American. spent most of his life in America, so we'll take him. We'll claim him. American, wins NCAA cross. Then a guy by the name of Grant Blanks, I think won back-to-back for sure, won one. And it was big. And I feel like there's been a massive transformation that's talked about on the track with Americans and how well we're doing on the global stage. But I don't think it's talked about a lot how NCAA cross, the top guys are starting to be American more and more, even despite the amount of international transfers we have. You might be the next great American hope, as you're saying. You want to potentially win in November. How do you feel? How do you feel carrying the torch?
Yeah, I mean, it'd be pretty awesome. And I think the cool thing is, like you said, like there's such an influx of talent from all over the world right now that, the NCAA feels like more of a global sport than ever. And I mean, I think the biggest thing for me is, like I know that if I'm able to go out and win cross country, that, I'm not just one of the best guys in America or able to compete on a national level, that I'm more so able to compete on, a worldwide level. And I'm one of the best cross country runners in the world. So I think that's what's exciting. I think the thought of that and, having to match up to these kind of guys has made me better as an athlete. And, it would kind of make it mean even more to just go out in such a competitive field and, like you said, carry the torch and be able to win it.
Last cross season, we do have some opportunities now with, World Cross coming to the US next year. And I'm sure, you could run certain cross country races throughout your pro career if you wanted to, but it is kind of a weird sport where it's not really a sport to the point where there really aren't that many opportunities to race it at the professional level. And so there's a chance that this is, one of your final shots on the grass. And also just NCAA is just sick. Like it means more than, in my opinion, some random cross country meet in some European country I've never heard of. For you, how much does it mean to have this be your final cross country season? And is it weird, like doing grass workouts and be like, wow, this might be the final time in the fall I'm doing this type of work?
Yeah, it's definitely weird. I think, it's gone by really quick. Like I didn't think, 4 years would go by this fast, but I'm definitely going to take it all in. And, I think even if, like you said, if I'm a professional runner and I run cross country races, like there's not going to be anything like, suiting up with my team at ACCs and trying to win an ACC title and waking up every Tuesday and Friday morning and, going out with a group of 20 to 30 guys who are all working out together. And, I think NCAA cross country in general is pretty special, and we've got a really good group. So just going to take it all in, enjoy every workout, and, put it all on the line when I race.
What's more, have you won a cross country race in college? Yeah, you have, because you won ACCs. What's more meaningful, winning a cross race or winning a track race?
I think cross for me, ACCs, I think is still one of the most meaningful races I've had. And, I kind of consider it a huge breakthrough where I kind of knew if I was running this well in cross, I was going to run really well on the track as well. But cross in general, I think is meaningful because, track, you run a specific event, whether it's 1500, 5K, 8K, but cross country, you have, every event from 800 to 10K running the same distance and all the best guys from across different event groups, all running at once. And, if you're able to come out on top of a bunch of different guys who run different events, it's pretty meaningful.
Um, Going from home course, last year it was run at Virginia, to a course that has never had an NCAA meet in somewhere in Missouri. What's that like? And do you like, as a participant in the sport, like, did you miss when it was like always the same place every year, or do you like how we're switching it up? And what would your preferred model be in terms of where courses are set?
I think it's great. I think switching it up is great. And, having it in different places, I think for the fan base of the sport, I think just having it in, areas where both running fans or maybe people who aren't as accustomed to running, but in the area might be like, hey, let's go out and watch this. I think it's a really good way to bring in new fans and, just to kind of spread it around and, so we're not having it all in one area. And I mean, as an athlete, I think it's really cool just to, get to run all these different courses and see different towns and different areas. And we went to Columbia, Missouri for Gans Creek, and it was a super cool town, like had a really good time being there. So, yeah, and the course itself was awesome. Like I think it'll be a great host for NCAAs. But yeah, I think that's one of my favorite aspects about running is just traveling to different places, seeing new tracks, new courses, and different areas. And I think it's great when track and cross country are spread all across different places.
How hard was OSU's cross course? I've never seen it, never run on it. People during that like 3-year stretch would always come on the podcast and be like, I saw God. That was the hardest 30 minutes of my life. How hard was it actually?
Yeah, it was not fun. It didn't help that I was a freshman at the time and I was not ready for 10K, but I think I got out well through 5K, was feeling good, and then the last like 5 to 9K was pretty brutal. And even then it was probably one of my better cross country races as a freshman. I think I was like 160th, which wasn't terrible. Like it was an okay race, but it was definitely brutal. I was not prepared for for those hills.
What would you say? We have a lot of like high level high school runners who listen. I know because going to the meets, they'll tell me, and I think that's an important example there. Like you were like 160th, and you said it was like one of your better races, and that's coming into college as on a unique list of like best high school athletes I've seen in the recent generations. Sub 4 miler. You were a stud back in the day. 160th, and then you flash forward 3 years later, and you're talking about winning the whole meet. How crucial is patience as a distance runner in that virtue?
Yeah, I think it's so crucial, and it kind of goes back to what we said earlier with training, that the biggest virtue you can have is patience and just trusting in the process. Because you know I think there's general principles about running and training that we know to be true. And you know your gut usually knows what you're supposed to do for training and recovery and all that. And just because you're not getting the results that you want to have right away doesn't mean you should panic and switch it up. Like if your training is going well, and if you're feeling like you're getting better in practice, then the results will come eventually. And you just really need to be patient and trust that you're doing the right thing. And there's, especially when you're competing at a brand new level, like if you're a freshman going into college, there's guys who are 4, 5, 6 years older than you and who are just been at it for longer and a lot stronger. And I mean, you just got to trust that you're going to keep getting better, and you're going to be strong enough to compete at a high level at some point.
With how long the track season is, indoor, starting honestly right after cross with the BU kind of meet, and you take a little bit of a break and then you hop back in. Indoor goes super long, and then you got Penn relays, and it goes all the way normally till USA's. Like it's a very long, mentally taxing season. We'll talk about track here in a second, but like how nice is it the fact that we haven't talked about track for 26 minutes, and there's probably only 1 month out of the year that would happen.
Yeah, I mean, it's nice. It's funny because I feel like I already missed track a little bit. Like I'm already
Really?
a little bit. I think. I mean, I love track, and I think running the mile and thinking about the mile and the 3K and the 5K gets me excited. But I mean, like you said, right now it's cross country is the focus. And I think it is definitely nice to have a reset, and it's hard to go hard for 12 months. So just to be able to have a couple months, even with cross country looming, just a couple months to focus on training and really know that that's the goal right now is definitely nice, both mentally and physically, to give myself a break and just kind of enjoy the process instead of having to go out and have the anxiety of racing every week.
How nice is it to have that like training switch up where a lot of your work's more strength focused? I imagine you guys are doing workouts on some rolling hills or, some grass courses. That's obviously very unorthodox. You wouldn't be doing that in May or June. Is that a nice mental and physical switch up to then when you get back into that track work, maybe appreciate it and enjoy it a little bit more and realize some of the gains from all the strength work?
Yeah, I really like it because I think as I've gotten older, I realize that I feel like I respond really well to this kind of stuff too. So whenever we have like just big periods of time to build the base and run high mileage and do these kinds of hill workouts, I kind of see it as an opportunity for me to get a lot better and to kind of lay the foundation for, a bigger and better track season than the year before. So, that's kind of how I always do it. Obviously, cross country, you got to run this stuff to be good at cross country too. But I think for track as well, it's so huge just to have this kind of foundation built for a long track season.
Your doppelganger in the East, Ethan Strand, he's moved on from the sport. Do you feel alone in the ACC right now? I know it's deep. I know it's competitive. I'm not throwing shade at other guys, but you and Ethan put on a show for everyone this past track season. Is it a little sad not having your best friend from Chapel Hill?
A little bit. It's weird because like obviously I knew they were seniors and they were going to run pros, but it's still, I feel like I've run against them my whole career. So to think that like you know they moved on and they're pros now, it kind of makes it feel weird because it's right around the corner for me. But it'll be weird not having him and Parker this year. And obviously, like Rocky Hansen's phenomenal. There's so many other good athletes in the ACC, but I feel like I've had so many battles with Ethan, and he's pushed me to be so much better as an athlete that I'm ready. I'm ready to hopefully step up, and I want to run the ACC this year. But it was definitely, I had some really good battles with him, and I was honestly, I think I was lucky I had him and Parker in the conference, because definitely made me a lot better, and always made it the battle at ACCs. Was never able to to walk through it.
You've kind of shifted. You said this earlier on in the conversation, from like the 8 mile to the mile 5K. What's behind that shift? And do you think we'll ever see Gary Martin really competitive in a 5K here soon?
We'll see. I mean, behind the shift, I think is just, as I've as we've realized how well I respond to the strength based stuff. I think coming in, I was more of a, I don't even know if I was speed based, but my training was more conducive to running like the 800 and the 15. But as I've gotten older and I've run more mileage, I think I would kind of have, kind of naturally inept at running like more mileage and the longer threshold stuff. So that's kind of just suited itself well for, cross country, 5K, 3K, stuff like that. And I don't know. I don't know when I'll see myself really go after the 5K. Definitely like to run one at some point. I ran 13:16 last year, but that was pretty much solo after the Pacers dropped off. So I think, if I got in a 5K later in the summer, I definitely had a lot more in the tank than that April race. So we'll see if I can run one this year and, make some noise, but I definitely think training wise, I'm ready for it.
Is it weird? Because I was thinking about asking you a question as I was thinking about like Pennsylvania high school distance running, because there was you and then there was Drew. And I feel like you guys, I asked you about this in our first conversation earlier this year. You guys really influenced like kind of an uprising of PA kids really starting to do well on a national level. And I was like, I don't really know who's the next guy up. And then I was talking about with one of the top runners in the country, his dad this past weekend in Tennessee. I was there for an event with Hoka. And I was just like, I don't know who's the top. And it was this realization I had that like we're in October now, which is crazy. The year's ending, but like every beginning of the fall, you never know who the top guys are. And then you look at the end of the season at the results and you're like, oh, that kind of made sense. Or this kid came out of nowhere. This kid came out of nowhere, because the shifts that can happen in a year are crazy. On the college level, it's even crazier because of the international like recruitment, because of transfers, because of guys just getting really good out of nowhere. Do you feel that way in college, or even if you follow the sport in high school, where it's like year over year, they're just guys who come out of nowhere and you never really know whether it's like you never heard of them before or they weren't all that good and then they kind of just got really good really fast?
A little bit. I think track, it's easier to tell like when a breakthrough is coming. And I think, obviously, unless you have someone coming internationally who I haven't heard of, which even then, like if you look at their times, they're going to be good. But I think cross country is where you see a lot of that, where, there's guys who are just, maybe ran more mileage over the summer than they used to, or trained really hard, or just had like a change in training and really, have a breakthrough on the grass that you didn't really expect. And I think that's kind of where we see a lot of variability, and there's guys just making these big leaps. But track, it definitely does happen, but I think it's a little more predictable, where the guys who you see breaking out have already been like national level guys, at least in some capacity.
Okay, Gary, 10 rapid fire questions. We'll close this thing out. You ready?
Yeah, let's do it.
Okay, number one, what's tougher, the last 100 of a 348 mile or the last 800 of an NCAA cross country course?
800 of an NCAA cross country course. No doubt. You see God.
This could be any time of your career. So like high school cross, high school track, or college cross, college track. Two, what's one workout that told you I'm ready to shock people?
Last year, I think I wrote about this a little bit with Sidious Mag, but before the Millrose Games, I did like 20 by 200 in, I forget, like 28 to 29, and then an 800 at the end in like, I think 152. And that was kind of like, when I did that, I was like, all right, I'm ready to run sub 350.
And you ultimately did that, 348. Number three, who's the NCAA runner you'd most love to kick down in the home stretch?
I don't know. I'm gonna say Brian Musal, just because he's so good, and I've run against him a lot, and I feel like I'm friends with him, and he's a really good guy. But he's so talented, and he's so hard to beat that if I'm running cross country against him and I'm kicking him down in the home stretch, then something's going really well.
Number four, which race gives you more adrenaline? USA Track and Field Championships or NCAA Cross Country Nationals?
I think NCAA Cross Country Nationals, and at least for me at this point, because I think there's a lot more pressure that comes with running in the NCAAs, because I feel like I've got to prove myself. Where USA's, even this year, I felt like was a little more fun, where once I made the final, I'm like, there's the pressure isn't on me. The pressure's on these bigger names guys, and I can just go out and try to cause some chaos and have some fun. So that was definitely more pressure, more nerves involved with the NCAA cross country.
Number 5, one race you'd replay if you could do it differently.
Maybe the NCAA 1500 outdoors. And, I was fifth in that race, was kind of disappointing. And I think maybe I would just run it a little differently, strategically, and try to just position myself better and run it a little better.
Number 6, what's the one piece of gear or ritual you swear by that no one else understands?
This is, I don't even know if I swear by it because I think it makes me run better or anything, but I almost always compete in 2 different socks. And part of that is just laziness where I just like grab them out and I don't feel like looking for the same ones, but it's also just kind of become my thing.
Crazy behavior.
I know it's crazy behavior, but it's become my thing.
It'll drive me nuts. I'm like so specific. And then if I put on like the type of socks that have like, it tells you what foot to put it on, like left or right. If I put them on and they're on the wrong foot, I'm like, did this so wrong. Are you off of this? We'll add a bonus one. Are you the type of guy who puts your socks on first and then your shoes? One sock, one shoe, one sock, one shoe. How do you do it?
Socks first, both socks and then shoes.
Shoes. Okay.
Yeah.
Do you tie one shoe and then tie the other? Wait. Do you put on one shoe, tie it? Or do you put on both shoes first and then tie both?
I usually put both shoes on and then tie both.
And then tie it. Okay, you're normal. You're normal in some ways. Number 7. Those questions are always hilarious because I'm like, I didn't even know that this could be a question. Like, what do I do? You know what I mean? Number 7. What's the most overhyped thing in college running right now?
Most overhyped thing.
Or you could just say like running in general. It doesn't have to be college specific.
Yeah, I don't know. I think there's a lot of hype around, and I talked about this a little earlier, and just, like paces and, the specificity of, like zone 2 or easy running. And I think I don't really know exactly what's right or wrong, but I think there's, the biggest thing about easy running is just feeling good. And I feel like that's kind of how I look at it. And maybe there's, different people see it different ways, but I think there's a lot that it's overcomplicated sometimes. I'll say that.
Number 8, what's one thing every runner should be doing that most don't?
Sleeping 8 hours, getting 8 hours of sleep a night. I think. I don't know if it's true that most don't, but I think
most don't.
Yeah,
statistically.
Maybe I mean, I always aim for. I try to get 9 hours of sleep. If I usually get at least 8, but I think that's the biggest thing.
Number 9, what song gets you in the zone before a big race?
I'm a really big Kendrick Lamar fan. I've been listening to a lot of Pusha T and Clips recently, so I'm going to combine the two. And I was, it was kind of my song of the summer, but Chains and Whips by Clips and Kendrick Lamar.
Have you heard, there's no way you haven't, but have you heard Prayer Unreleased by Kendrick?
Yeah, it's a good song.
Well, I don't know why I won't release it. Literally, I was working at a coffee shop this morning and I have to go on YouTube. I'm not making this up because you're a Kendrick fan. Went on YouTube and I have to search the song because it's only on YouTube because it's leaked there and it drives me nuts. I'm like, literally, one of the YouTube versions has like 4.2 million views. I'm like, dude, people love this song. Like,
yeah.
I'm always so curious behind the scenes because there's no way like his producer and like manager and all that and label like don't know that people want that song. So I'm always fascinated why they'll gatekeep those sort of things. So Kendrick, if you're listening, actually Kendrick Lamar is apparently a runner. I don't know if you knew that.
I think I've seen that. I think I've seen videos going out and running.
So maybe he listens. Kendrick, if you're listening, give me a shout out, release the song. Gary, last question for you. Finish the sentence. Winning an NCAA cross country title would mean?
The world.
I love it. Gary, thank you so much for taking the time to chop it up. Best of luck with the rest of your final NCAA cross country season. And I'll be cheering you on from afar.
Yeah. Thank you, Dominic. Always a pleasure.